Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me. My name is Lindsay Church. I am waiting for there we go. I am the executive director and co-founder of Minority Veterans of America. I use they, them pronouns. I am a third-generation military veteran. I came from a long line of service. My mom served, my grandfather before her, and 6 or 7 members of my family have served, including one that's currently in service. I served as a linguist in the Navy and spoke Persian Farsi from 2008 to 2012. I served under the military's policy of don't ask, don't tell. The military taught me a lot of things. It taught me to listen to people. It taught me the importance of building coalitions and of the value of inspirational and transformational leadership. After separating from the military, I returned to Seattle, Washington, and I found my way into veteran organizing. First as a student veteran, founding a student veteran unit at the University of Washington that still stands today and serves 3,000 to 4,000 military-connected students every year. I also was a post commander of an American Legion post, a 100-year-old military organization in Seattle, Washington. So 2017 came around, and the world was changing around us. We saw the beginning of the Women's March. We saw the Muslim ban. We saw the trans ban. And 12 days later, we started our organization. Along with one of my best friends, Catherine Pratt, who went to the University of Washington with me, a Korean-American woman veteran, myself as a trans, queer veteran myself, we decided that it was time for change and that we had to find a way to come together. There were many organizations in the military community that served minority veterans, but they only did so with one population. And so we said that we needed to create an intersectional movement of minority veterans if we were going to create change. So we built an organization that serves racial ethnic minorities, women, LGBTQ folks, and religious and non-religious minorities so that we can create voice for our community. We've always been a community-powered and community-driven organization. We design our own solutions in our organization. Most of our members are veterans themselves. Our volunteer leaders are mostly veterans themselves. Our staff is all veterans, queer, people of color, military-connected spouses. We lead our own solutions around MVA. So in 2019, I took a chance. My wife told me she was moving to Richmond, Virginia, and I said I probably ought to go with you. So I left my job at the University of Washington, and I took a chance, and I planted a flag in the sand. I said, I have a strat plan in mind, and I'm going to make MVA the premier organization for minority veterans around the country. And then the lovely word that we all know, COVID. Our friend COVID came around. So COVID brought unique challenges. As a small, young organization, we were about 2.5, 3 years old at the time, and we had about 700 members going into it. We were a very small organization and very underfunded to do exactly what we needed to do, which was change the world. No big deal. We also knew that our communities were disproportionately impacted by the pandemic. Whether this be that our community was more likely to work in the service industry, more likely to lose their jobs, more likely to be single parents, more likely to need childcare, more likely to experience food insecurity, and the list goes on and on and on. So at the same time, the world was also realizing that COVID didn't change much. It just brought to the surface the problems that already existed. So what do we do in times of drastic change? So I had 4 options. Fight. I could fight and plant a flag in the sand and say we know best and we're just going to stay the course. Flight, I could run away from the problem and pretend it didn't exist, but here we are almost 3 years later, and we all know COVID still exists. I could freeze, stop everything that we're doing, and just wait it out. Our communities would suffer in the interim if we didn't act quickly. And my last chance was to start over, and so that's exactly what we did. We decided that we didn't know what we didn't know, and rather than fight change, we had to be willing to take this change and see where our community wanted us to go. So where does change happen? For us, change is everything that we're trying to achieve, and so as a change movement, we had to figure out how do we ensure that our voices are all being heard here, and that our priorities reflect what's happening most in people's lives. The first 2 things that we inserted were voice and agency. First and foremost, communities need voice in their own movements. They need to be empowered to speak. They need to be able to give inputs into the services that we provide. We also needed to give agency. Sometimes this looks different. As social services, I'm seeing some nods in the room, how many times have you heard, we can't give direct cash to the community because they will spend it frivolously? We heard these things, these tropes, the same thing that we had heard over and over again. And so we had to say, actually, they need direct cash because some people need to pay their light bills. Some people need to pay their mortgage. Some people need to go buy groceries and diapers. It's not for me to tell you what you need. It's for you to tell me what you need and for me to find a way to deliver. So we inserted agency and we said, whatever you need, tell us. We'll find a way. What did that create? That created buy-in. That created buy-in from the community that they wanted to come in. And most importantly, it created adoption. Oftentimes, we don't think about how our communities are going to adopt our programs when we build them. We just think we need to do a thing, and we're going to give it to people the way that we designed it. Actually, that results in people not wanting to use your services. And when they do, they don't retain. You have to be looking at adoption first and how your community is going to uptake those programs to be able to make sure that they're successful, because otherwise your programs will fall flat. All right, so what do? We turned towards collaborative innovation. We started with listening. We surveyed our members, we looked at our own internal strategies, and we said, for us, what is our perception of what the most urgent needs are? We looked at our strategic plan. We looked at our plans that were going forward for 2019, 2020, 21. All of those things, we looked at what do we think the needs are? And then we asked our community, what did you think the needs were? And so they told us something completely different. And so we had to look at, do those values, do those needs align, and are we delivering what they want? Sorry, I'm 1 minute, so I'm going to go very fast. Oh, I should probably switch the page. All right, so I'm going to skip forward to my key takeaways. All right, so first and foremost, communities know what they need best. Folks know their experiences, and just because we're from the communities that we serve doesn't mean that we know the solutions that they need. Everybody was experiencing the pandemic, and many people were experiencing it differently. We didn't need to be prescriptive, we needed to be responsive. We didn't need to tell them, we needed to respond to what they told us. They told us that their greatest needs were and how they were changing as time went along. Second, voice and agency are tools for creating buy-in and adoption. You need all four to create trust. When communities feel heard and considered in program design and improvement, they're more likely to use your services and retain. Third, a plan is only as important as those who will use it. Best laid plans, we all know what they say about them. They only help the folks when they're designed for what folks need most. Even when I think that I know best from the 30,000 foot perspective, it's only as valuable as if I can meet base needs for them to buy into my vision. And last, sometimes the greatest gains come when you hit pause. Had we not taken a chance and changed everything, we might have missed the moment in time that we got to dig deep, to learn about our community, and to embrace the growth of our movement. We shifted our power and shared it among our community and our organization. As a result, our membership grew by 200% in 1 year, by 300% in 2. We received over 1,400 applications for our COVID fund. We started with 700 members at the beginning of the pandemic. As a result, we also distributed over $100,000 in aid through food insecurity programming, through direct financial relief, and we were able to serve more folks through our pandemic relief fund than we had ever served as an organization. So my favorite part of all of this is that we had laid a strong foundation so that when George Floyd was murdered, when Vanessa Guillen was murdered, our community had its base needs met so that we were on the front line of change. Minority veteran organizers were out in Richmond, DC, San Antonio on the front lines of change because their base needs were met going into it. We had used a base building strategy that empowered our community to be on those front lines. And most importantly, we didn't just become the premier organization for minority veterans. We became the organization that minority veterans knew that they could trust when the world fell apart. Thank you.